So my name is Sasha Morris. I'm the geologist stroke educator for the Waitaki Limestone Geopark. Very warm welcome to you all this evening on such a cold, wet night.
Freezing.
Well done, everyone. So this evening we've got the great privilege of having Mike Gray come and speak with us, to us. A lot of you will know Mike. Mike's a bit famous in this area. So, and a lot of you will be well familiar with his storytelling antics. So you can sit back and know you're going to be well entertained this evening. Mike's going to talk to us about his experiences in Duntroon, in particular Vanished World, and the Tokarahi Homestead. And we're going to run things a little bit differently this evening. We'll wrap things up about 20 to 7, and then there'll be a brief time for questions and answers before moving on to one of the trustees. So welcome, Mike. Thank you for being here this evening, and we just look forward to hearing your yarn.
Thank you. So good evening all. Thank you for coming out on such a freezing night. The temperature dropped dramatically just a few hours ago, so really not, I can see a few of you still got scarves on. Cool. My name's Mike Gray. I'll start off by the only thing I've really got written. There's a few things on the slide, but I'll just use this because it really tells me why I've chosen that title, just to keep me on track as well as yourself. I'd better come clean from the start. Number one, I'm not a geologist. Number two, I'm not a historian. And when Lynn and I moved here 25 years ago, we were newlyweds, and we weren't even locals. So what in the hell am I doing here? We knew nothing about the community or the place that we chose to migrate to. It was an unknown world to us, a totally unknown world. It was to be a journey of discovery. Actually, it had been discovered before we arrived. So therefore, it's actually a journey of rediscovery. I guess you call that history. That is the study or the rediscovery of past events. So what is a vanished world? I guess it's a past world. One that's no longer, doesn't mean it's no longer, it doesn't exist, but it means it's no longer easily recognized. So tonight's presentation is about my rediscovery of a past or a vanished world and the community that were an integral part of that story. Right, I've got two weapons, a cane and a digital device. So here we go. I better get the right button. So it's a passionate community, and that's what I discovered when I arrived. We were absorbed into it and we got really stuck into it. There are three parts to this story. Part one, and I'll be rushing it because I planned it for 60 minutes and it's now been shrunk to about 45. Chapter one's talking about the restoration of Tokarahi Homestead. It's really discovering a previous Victorian era that I knew nothing about. And that's the homestead. Chapter two is looking at a community vision, a bottom-up approach, and our aim was to fight rural decline. I'll define that when we get to it. And there we are, we're winning. And chapter 3 is about a vanished world. This was one that was discovered by Ewan Fordyce and his team, and it took the experts to find it. However, it's been rediscovered many times over by visitors that come to Vanished World. So they're the three chapters in my story tonight. And that's where you'll see it when you get there. All right, so in the 1990s, I sold my Jag. And what did I do? I bought that place. That's my grandson. I swore him to secrecy because no one else in the family knew that we just signed up for this place. Nice lot of ivy on the outside. If you look at this, it's got a leaking roof. It's got rising damp. It's got rotting timbers. In fact, the owner confided that we were the only people interested. Everyone else walked in the front door and went out the back door. And if we hadn't bought it, he was going to widen the front door and store tractors in there. So we were stupid enough to see through that and see what it had been. We were looking back into its vanished world. And we could see its future. So what did we do? In 1996, Lynn and I were married. We planned our escape to the country. We spent many a weekend in a rundown homestead, freezing cold in winter, planning how we would transform it. We researched its history and purchased a book called Victorian Splendour that was written in Australia, but it had restored old buildings, and that became our Bible. We drew up our plans and hired a local builder, all set to go. Oh, got to go back a bit. I'm going the wrong way. Right, so we replaced the roof. First thing we had to do, you've got to have a good skin on the top, otherwise you're in trouble. And the veranda, because when we took the ivy down, it fell down. In midwinter 1997, we moved in to live. Oh no, that's not our children, that's us. We had a pre-demolition party for the locals. They all arrived. They'd had many a party in this homestead, but because it was an old homestead and was cold and wet and damp, they all arrived with their swan dries and their coats and everything else, and they walked in the front door and had to strip them off because we'd put a jet engine in there. You know, one of these heaters that blasts out heat. And so when they walked in, we said, take your coats off, because when you come next time, when we've restored it, it will be comfortably heated. And then we had dinner, and they all talked about the past, and we got the history. We got the stories from the real people that had lived there and visited there. And we showed them our plans. We stuck them up on the door. And when they left, they all shook hands and said, well, nice to meet you, Mike and Lynn, and good luck. You know what that means. We don't think you can do it. So, there's a lot of story. I could spend the whole night telling you the stories of Tokarahi Homestead. We'll pick a couple. The story of the two sliding doors. Can you just see in here, there's an archway, there's a door and a door. There's a bit too much light on there, but we'll survive. And those doors are wallpapered. They're covered with wallpaper? There's something wrong here. Because if you have ornate pillars and ornate curvature, you should have ornate doors. That's just the way it should be. So we removed the wallpaper. There it is there. We removed the scrim. There it is there. We removed the wooden battens that made it a flat door. And behold, the original craftsmanship was rediscovered. Can you see panel doors? Mm-hmm. Can you see that there's a white undercoat on them, but around the edges where the, what's the word? Mouldings were, they'd been pulled out and you could see the natural wood. So they got to the stage where they put the mouldings in, they undercoated the door, they were actually going to grain it to look like oak, and they abandoned it. They put battens on and wallpapered it. Why? Well, we soon found out why. Because these doors stood on two rollers. So there's a door on two rollers, and it rolls open and closed, pocket door. But the trouble is there was nothing on the top, so it wobbled. So every time you went to put it into the pocket, it went this way and knocked the mouldings off, or went that way and knocked the mouldings off. So the mouldings were being knocked off every time they put it in. So I don't know who their builder was, but his answer was, wallpaper it, make it flat, and then there's nothing to knock it off. So we added mouldings. We painted it in two tones and added rollers at the top, hidden rollers so that the door stood vertical. And this created beauty and functionality, and there were our panel doors. By the way, the room's now been done up on this side, and that's our drawing room. Chandeliers, baby grand, and those doors, if you pull them open when you're dressed up in top hat and tails, you say, ladies and gentlemen, would you care to come to dinner? And then you go straight into the Victorian dining room. Dining room? Well, there's nothing wrong with the double skirting boards. The walls are rising damp, the fireplace is rusted out, the floors are all, and the joists are rotten. Nothing wrong with the double skirting board though. It was the only thing that was still intact. Okay. This provided us with insights into the world of the landed gentry and the clumsy servants. The pew rents. A letter arrived. Dear Mr. McMaster, we wish to inform you that you are in arrears in your pew rents. Would you kindly call to the presbytery and pay the sum of £1 being the amount owing? Otherwise your pews will be available for reletting. Signed the minister. So he puts the letter on the mantelpiece, says, bugger, I must remember to pay that. But it slips down the back of the mantelpiece. That's why we found it when we took the fireplace out. Did he pay his pew rents? Or did he find someone there when he turned up? An account owing. There was a letter addressed to Mr. James Brebner, who was an employee on the estate. The letter was still in the envelope when we found it. We opened it, and there was an account. 3 entries in it, covering about 3 years. And at the bottom, this poor shopkeeper who was trying to get his money said at the bottom, a settlement would greatly oblige. Did he get his money? Probably not, because the envelope hadn't been opened and it was down behind the fireplace. A small figurine. Recognise that? That's from a movie, I'm sure. It's not the real thing. Prince Albert, baby in christening gown. He was fond of children. We found a figurine that had exactly that. A man holding a baby in a christening gown. Trouble was, the head was broken off. Where do we find it? Behind the fireplace. Aha! Call in the detectives. What do you reckon happened? Well, I reckon the maid was dusting it, knocked, oh, I've broken it. How can I get rid of the evidence? Push the flap back, get rid of it behind the fireplace, and then keep mum till we found it. That's the dining room. Once we opened the doors, that's what that fireplace you just saw finally ended up with. Magnificent, what's the wallpaper by? William Morris wallpaper, chandeliers, candelabra, crystal glasses. Victorian dining is a light experience because it doesn't matter what you do or where you move, light reflects from beveled edges and mirrors, from crystal in the chandelier, from crystal glasses. It's just a fabulous experience at night. Rising damp. Look at that in the wall in the bedroom. Solution, dig a moat. So we dug a moat around the homestead. That collected the water before it got to the wall. We solved the damp problem. A very early photograph taken by White Aviation. You've probably heard about them. They photographed all the farms. If you paid enough, you could get a tinted version. We had a tinted version, which unfortunately we left at the homestead when we sold it. And what it had was this red roof here was all painted red. So was that chimney, so was that chimney, and that chimney. So the tinters got rid of 3 chimneys when they tinted the roof. There's the washing on the line at the back. That wasn't a good look. They painted it green to make it look like grass. However, that's what the tinters did to make the picture look beautiful. However, that tells us the day that the photo was taken. What day was it? Monday, because Monday was wash day. Okay, we did it. That's the front wall. We restored it. We ran it as a B&B, and that's the end of that chapter. Chapter 2, the community vision. How am I going for time? I think I'm okay. A bottom-up approach to fight rural decline. What's rural decline? Well, anyway, sorry, I jumped in there. Now, that was the day the Alps to Ocean came through and several other things happened. So there's the guy in charge of the Alps to Ocean just up here. He's waving furiously. Here's our current chairman of DDDA. This is my dear wife. This is her daughter. This is me, this is the mayor, and that's one of our workers. You'll see her in another photo. So that's Duntroon. That's a fabulous painting by Colin Wheeler. Now, if you know Colin Wheeler, he's painted everything in this countryside. All the buildings, all the towns. But this is more than the painting of a building. This is a statement, it's a social statement. It's called Anzac Day. It actually is a painting of rural decline. If you look at it, let's analyse it. The building was the chemist shop, which became the general store, which then became a cartage contractor, which then closed down and is now standing in the main street looking very forlorn. These are the blacksmith's tools. As an artist, he's taken them from the blacksmith shop because it was falling over, and as an artist put it in the front window of here because he wanted to indicate there was a blacksmith in the town. These pillars are across the road outside one of the oak trees. 2 oak trees in the village green. One of them's got this fence around it, commemorating a fallen soldier. That is, a young man from Duntroon who went to war and never came home. This is his plaque, a brass plaque. They've all got white ones now. That's the brass plaque naming him and which war he went to and didn't come home from. Here is a wreath put there because it's Anzac Day. But what do you see? The wreath has got flowers which are dead, just like the soldier, just like the town. And that's what it says. It says a town which is dying, a soldier who died, the flowers are dying. That represents to me rural decline. When it started, that's what Duntroon looked like. None of you will remember those buildings. They're gone, most of them. That's the bridge down there with the river. So the hotels down that end, Vanish World is somewhere there. A lot of these buildings are totally gone. This side had the railway station. You notice that the street isn't paved. There's the hotel. They've got parking problems outside their hotel there. You notice that? We still have today parking problems. They haven't fixed it. Traction engine, thrashing machine, just come back from getting all the crops. It takes 14 people to run one of those. Imagine the amount of beer that was drunk that day. At least 14 people in there. And then there's some other horses and carts there at the hotel. Luckily, the hotel's still there. There it is. And that's what it's got now. Instead of horse and carts outside, lots of cyclists. It's been restored inside and it's still in a process. It needs other things done to it, but they've put a lot of money into that place to get the doors open. Pharmacy. Very old photo of the pharmacy. I want you to note that there's a veranda, there's a post on this end and a post on that end. What's behind it is a window and a door. That's the pharmacy. It was then added to. Can you see that this post is no longer central? That's because the post lined up with the window and the door, then that little bit was added at the end. That's why there's only a little bit on the veranda. So that's a photo of it. And then unfortunately, it had its demise and it ended up in the hands of a cartage contractor. An earlier photo had it as Johnson. At that stage it's Tate's, and that's what it looks like today. This is an example of Duntroon's failure. We bought it thinking it was a historic building. We wanted to restore it. We got the historic people in the council to come and have a look at it. They said there's only 1 or 2 pieces of timber that are really historic. And if you restore it, it actually won't be a restoration, it'll be a recreation. So unfortunately then we've had to let that project go. There's one, early days. Now, real blacksmith, real horse. sign, Yardley. It's now Nichols because it changed hands. Only one building in front there. That's the store, which was very small, and that had been added at the back. So a very early photograph. You know, I love the concept of a blacksmith. You think about it. If you were the blacksmith in that period, when you got up in the morning and you went to work, you did not know who was going to be at the front door. Because that guy's horse lost a shoe. Someone else had a wheel that needed fixing. Something else happened. He couldn't ring up. He didn't get on the internet and make a booking. You'd turn up at the front door. So the blacksmith would arrive and he would see, oh my godfather, I've got 15 people here. I'm going to be working hard today. So yep, he worked hard all day. What did they do? Drifted off to the pub. And that's where the communication worked. That was the network. That was the equivalent of the modern day internet. That's where the news came in, got passed around, slightly twisted, and then sent back out again on a daily basis. Meanwhile, the blacksmith earned his money. So there it is, before it was restored. Don't know who that guy there is with a bowler hat. And so it looks in reasonable nick. There's the side of the building. Oh yeah, get rid of the ivy, that creepy stuff there and those few trees. It just needs a bit of cleaning up. Okay, it needed more than that. So we set about a restoration project in the town. Look at it, a 3-year fundraising. We have to raise the funds before we can leverage it from other places. So we set about raising funds. What I like is you just go through that checklist. This was written before the restoration. Did we achieve our vision? Did this community get there? Restore an original blacksmith. Tick. Display the authentic artifacts. Tick. Tell the Duntroon blacksmith story. Tick. A live blacksmith on special occasions. Tick. They were working yesterday. An educational resource for visitors. Tick. The busload that came through yesterday walked away having a better understanding of what it's all about. Another authentic tourist attraction. Spot on. And then just to complete it, I couldn't resist this. There haven't been too many words there before you. Why restore a blacksmith shop? Well, basically, it's not important. And Nickel wasn't that important because he wasn't prominent. The building's not important. The town's not important. However, the story is. It is, however, a very rare example of what was a vital service throughout the nation. And it lives on here in this original building. It was the workplace of the craftsmen who, along with many other blacksmiths throughout the country, kept the country land system and the farming industry working. That's why you save it. Oh my God, we took the creepy stuff away and look what was there. Nothing. It had been eaten. So, what do? Put a foundation down, new base plate, build an inside, or at least that's a temporary wall, but put the studs back in. But you'll notice they haven't taken away the wall, because these were great craftsmen too. They kept that wall even though it was only half there, because on the inside is the brands from all the brands where they tested them. That wall was important. So they kept it. So what they did was they built a wall on the outside of that wall. So there are two walls. There's the outside wall. But inside you'll see the old bit with its corrugated bit that's missing inside. And all the brands are still there. So that's it. As a point of note, that says 70k. It took us many years to get that reverted back to 50k within the town. That's just another fight. Okay, how much of the building was saved? Well, you can see by the new timber there that we saved as much as we could. That whole door's been saved, maybe 50% of that, 0% of that wall, but that's it before we finally coated up with paint, and that's it on opening day. So that took a long while to achieve that within the town. New sign, and there are the trustees. This gentleman has moved on to a better place. There's the mayor, and these blacksmiths are around. Jan's now the chairperson of that particular trust. But that was the fun side on the other side of the road. That's where the community celebrated their achievement on the day of that opening. And today it's open. This guy's Harry. He's local, just a few steps down the road. Pat from down up at Livingston. And this gentleman here, Dave, is a master blacksmith from England. When he left school, his parents said, "No, you're not leaving school till you got a job." So we were walking the streets. He walked into a blacksmith shop, said, "Do you want a worker?" The guy said, "Yeah." He says, "Fine." He left school, became a blacksmith. And now he lives here in Ōamaru. He is definitely a master craftsman. He can take a piece of steel, bend it, put holes in it and turn it into a horseshoe. Today they don't. They buy them half made and then change them to fit. But he makes them from scratch. Now, the other thing we do in the town is we look after our stories and our memories. So there is a plaque with the help of Network Waitaki commemorating Walter Yardley and Bob Taylor, a local blacksmith who were killed in a road accident. There's the jail. The jail was removed from the town, stored in town. We found out about it, got it back, cleaned it up, and you can go in there, go inside, shut the door and see what it's like to be. It's horrible. The amount of light you get in, there's that much light from a window way up with bars. Takiroa, yes, we weren't the first people, the colonial people there. The Maori people were there, sleeping over in the limestone, leaving their cave drawings on the cave, telling their stories of their journeys and everything else. And that's well preserved, as best preserved as possible there at Takiroa. You'll notice the danger. That was a rockfall in recent years, so it gets closed when there's heavy rain in case further rock falls. But that's the local story too, just a few kilometres out of town. I love those drawings. They don't come from that site. But aren't they stunning? 10 of us. Here's an early photograph of the traffic bridge that crosses the Maraplanua and goes from Ōamaru on this side into the town. And look at it, made of wood. It is a road rail bridge. You didn't want to drive your car across there without checking that a train wasn't coming. And that was the job. People had to manage that.
Or if it had been a frost and it was icy.
Yeah. So that building's gone. However, that bridge, we do have a span. So it's in the town and it's got a plaque describing where it came from, what it did. You see, they're part of the history that would have gone. It would have been vanished. It would have been totally lost unless it was saved for people to understand. Flying Pig. Oh, it had many stories. Faye would know most of the stories as to what was in that building over the years. It ended up being a cafe. And believe it or not, today, will they open?
Yes.
Today was the first day they reopened with new managers. It's been shut for many, many years. So start planning your trip out for a coffee. Wetlands. A lot of the wetlands get drained for farming. And part of this had been totally drained, but that bit remained. So the people in the town said, we've got to recreate our wetlands, we've got to get them back. The first thing to do, have a look at all the willows. They're all gone. All of them. And there is a lot of work went on before this day. This was the first planting day. All these people would now be adults. And these old-timers would be very old-timers. But that's how the work gets done. And there's a boardwalk which we raised funds for and put in the wetlands, and now it's used by the Alps to Ocean as they enter the town. And there is the opening day when we put in an entrance which is not telling a Maori story, it's telling a land and environment story, because it's got what they are the animals that you find in this wetlands. Oh, and this guy, he's at the back of the blacksmith next to the brewery hole, created from the scrap from the blacksmith shop. All of his neck is made from horseshoes. Then there are ploughshares and things back there, and this comes from the day when the automobiles arrived, and there's some shock absorbers and things like that. So that's created by Matt King from Herbert created that sculpture. And there's a plaque telling what that story is, along with the Haast Eagle, which has recently been installed. Oh, our toilets. Burns Pollock is our local artist, so he's decorated that. It's a community affair. Everyone gets involved. Even that person. Now that was the lady back in that original photo. So what's she doing? She's cleaning toilets, because we have the contract in Duntroon to clean the toilets. Why? Because it's better money, earning money by cleaning the toilets under a contract in order to do our community affairs than it is to make jam, put it out on trestles on a Saturday, man the stall, and then when no one drops through, buy the jam, and then go home. We don't make a lot of money that way. Here we are, a selfless act. This plaque is across from the pub, and it recognises Henry Lawson, not the poet from Australia. The poet, don't you know it? You know the ad. Anyway, and he died, unfortunately. He just had taken over the farm, and this worker got into trouble in the river, and he dived in to save him, and unfortunately was not successful. What welds a community? What keeps things ticking and in contact with each other? Nothing like the Duntroon Digger. And that is a local newspaper, and that comes out monthly. That's the December 2016 issue, and this is encouraging the locals to create a scarecrow in order to put it on the village green to make the town look a little bit alive when the visitors went through. Oh, it's not what it seems. It's my wife kissing Wally. But the real story behind it is that she is a seamstress and makes her own clothes. So they're all Victorian, which she's made because Lynn was a doll artist. So she not only makes dolls, but she makes mannequins. And that guy's all dressed in my has-been clothes. So he sits outside the Blacksmith Shop. People have their photos taken with them. So even back then, we're thinking about marketing. How do you get photos taken that sell your town? So that's Duntroon. That's the river. You could think of it as a tanifa. It's called the Duntroon District Development Association. Not ratepayers, not interested in the rates, we're interested in developing the town. And it proudly shares our district heritage. That's been our goal all along when it was set up about 20 years ago. So that's the community. These are the people that make it tick. They meet every month, not annually. Every month, and they have enough on their agenda to keep them busy. A couple of them have changed since that photo was taken. And finally, that's the award we won as Supreme Winners in Trustpower Awards. So we're proud of that. That's the end of that chapter. Any questions at the moment?
I go out to Duntroon every Monday, and I've never seen all of the things like Blacksmith was forward, or the gold sport. I just wondered where all the stuff was.
Well, the blacksmith's there, and normally what we say on the website and so on is that it's open for viewing. But that depends on a volunteer, the one that does the toilets.
Not so much.
Sorry, yep.
Like, I know where the toilets are, but all of the rest of that area, like the campus, where it is. So
The camping ground?
No, I'm in the community centre
Yeah.
on Monday mornings, but we are actually like to see it, I don't know, I was not necessarily looking for it, but like tonight, I know we should look for it now, but where will I look for it?
Well, all these are in the main street.
What is the main street?
Well, the Highway 83, as it goes through the town. You come into the town over the bridge, the pub's on the left, Village Green's on the right, Venice World's on the left, the Flying Pig's on the left, the toilets are on the right. Basically, as you go through the town, it's all there in that street. Okay, now we move to chapter 3, A Vanished World, discovered by Ewan Fordyce and his team, and hopefully rediscovered by visitors in the Vanished World Centre. How am I going for time? I'm running out rapidly. Okay, we know if you go there that you get the basic story, which is that New Zealand 70 million years ago had twice the amount of real estate than it has now. That's why it's getting so expensive. Somebody stole it. 40 million years ago it had the same amount of real estate as we have now, roughly. 20 million years ago it had gone under the sea. Not through glacial things and climate change. It's because that magma down there was pushing continents around and pushing land up and sucking it down. And it was sucking us down. Looked like we were goners. Luckily, in 10 million years ago, this process changed and we're now coming out of the sea. As seen at Kaikoura, as seen at Napier, when these earthquakes happen, more land is coming out of it. We're in the coming out phase. Coal. Formation of coal. You have swamps, you have peat. It gets pressured, goes under the ground, gets heated, turns into coal. That's what happens to carboniferous things, things that are living. There's a coal seam in Napara. So that's reinforcing what I just said. It was above land, it was green and lush. It then went below the sea, got pushed and squashed and heated and crunched and turned into coal. Now it's been lifted out of the sea so that you can see it in Napara as you go through. Otaki Limestone, that's what most of our hills are made out of. That's the top layer. It's the recent limestone, 25 million years old. That's all, just 25 million years. There it is in the cliffs. That's the Valley of the Whales, where a lot of the whale fossils have been found. There it is in the homestead. No trees, no forests. So what do you build your homestead out of? Oh, the local Otaki limestone. Go and dig out a few blocks and stick them in there. Ah, that's not the same. That's the Opera House. It's Tokarahi limestone. It's Ōamaru stone. There it is in the quarry. If you look at it under a microscope, that's what it is. Dead marine animals. That's what limestone is. And there they are, all crisscrossed. And that's why there's lots, it's soft, because there's lots of air in there. It's not like ordinary solid rocks. Where did that come from? Came from this stuff called bryozoas. Look at what the definition is. Aquatic, lives in water. Invertebrate, no skeleton, and it's an animal. So it can feed itself and get nutrients out of the water. And as it grows, it leaves a little column behind like coral. When it dies, you go back to that shot that we had before, that one there, and that's it. That's what the limestone is. That's why it's so pure, nothing else was around. That's what made the stone. That's why it's pure and white and made of the same stuff. And it's 40 metres deep in the quarry, over millions of years. Amazing story. Now that's a block of limestone. So therefore, it's 35 million years old. That's the age of Ōamaru stone. 35 million years. I can't resist telling you this story. You may have heard it. I'm going to give you fake news. You know what fake news is. A squidgen of truth and a whole lot of rubbish is the fake news. This fossil in Vanished World with its bones proves that Kentucky Fried Chicken was sold 35 million years ago. Most of that's hogwash, which is the bit of truth. One element of truth. 35 million years old. That's the age of the limestone. Now I'll give you the true story. This is evidence of a penguin being fast food to a scavenger 35 million years ago. Got it? That's true. Weren't the stories similar? All right. The next question is, how do you find these damn things? No, he's not on the payroll. That's how we find it. The edge of that limestone has got a brown mark. So this is pure dead marine life. So's that, but it's different. Oh, let's go and dig and see what makes it different. Ah, turns out to be a penguin. You've got to find it. Here's one. You probably can't see it clearly, but this is a slab of limestone and down there's a set of vertebrae. Now that was at earthquakes. The rain came, this lump of limestone went clonk. That's its dotted line. You know how you tear along the dotted line? Well, that skeleton was its dotted line. And half the whale fossil's still on the wall, the other half's lying on the rock down below. So we can't find them by seeing with X-ray vision, but when they get exposed, that's how we find it. Now here is Helen Brooks. She passed away and was buried only a week or so ago. She's the first chairperson. There she is, digging out a fossil, helping to expose it at Anatini. It ends up being covered up for people to see. So that's how we tell that story in the place where it was found. Quickly there, they're digging one out. What they do is wrap it in plaster, load it on a truck, take it to the university where they take the plaster off and then process it. A paleo lab, paleontology, that's what it means. So they're digging the fossil out of the limestone and discovering extinct species. And so those are the stories at Vanished World. The guy that was in the previous photo, he was an intern at that time doing his PhD, and I think he was responsible for a lot of the work putting that guy together. There are some of the locals. Oh, nice set of dentures there, eh? Another thing that's in there, we don't always have limestone fossils because they're vulnerable. With changes of heat, temperature and all this sort of stuff, climate, humidity, they break up. So some of our fossils which are real break apart. So we often have a cast. A cast doesn't. It's made of, not plaster Paris, fiberglass. So it's not going to break apart. But it's a 3D record of what you see. So that is a cast, and those shark's teeth back there, they were a cast too. So they're brilliant, the casts that are made. Cost a few dollars, but they're there to tell the story. This guy tells you, what have we found? Some ribs. Oh, must breathe air. Can't be a shark. A backbone. So he could be a penguin. He's got a backbone, but not that size. And then finally there's a jaw with teeth. Sounds like a land animal to me. But it's marine, it's in the middle of the ocean. So what is it? There he is. Now I said I wasn't a local. All the locals, you're not locals. He's local. He's 25 million years he's hung around here. He's a real local. And that's Waitaki Valley. That's his name. Come out and meet him sometime. Where did they come from? Well, the theory is they came from the land, became amphibians, and then gradually became whales and dolphins. And that story's partly told because it's still being discovered, not only here, but all around the world. This guy is the thing I took off the internet, and it refers to Tokarahi. That's named after Tokarahi. And that specimen has got some unique things. Notice the blowhole's halfway. This is part of the evolutionary process. And this Tokarahi had teeth, but he was also in the process of growing baleen. So he was transitioning from being a toothed whale or dolphin to becoming a baleen whale. So that guy is part of that transition story, found locally. So hopefully you've discovered or rediscovered something tonight. So what about the future? Well, we haven't got a crystal ball. However, so we haven't got a crystal ball, see, Superman is back again. But we do have indicators. And our indicators are, look at those kids having a ball. Look at these people, thoroughly enjoying discovering fossils. Have a look at this, school programs, things for holidays. And that's what we're doing, is we're promoting that education thing at all different levels. And that is what will assure the future of Vanished World. Finally, Pukekohe Travel, they had a successful visit on May the 5th. So successful, they booked 4 more. And these are trains coming to town. So there's another 360 paying visitors turning up. So we must be doing something right. Yes, we intend to invest in the future. That's our vision. Redo the front, improve our story, and make sure we capture more visitors. So thank you for joining me in my time machine on our rediscovery journey. That's it, folks.
Thank you, Mike. Wonderful, wonderful gallop through the geological history and the social stories, and I just know hearing you talk that is just the top layer of many layers of stories that we look forward to hearing more from you at another time. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, we won't have time for questions, but I am going to hand over to the Geopark, one of the Geopark trustees now, who's just going to take things from here.
Thank you. Ahi ahi pai, ko Mel Jones ako. Lovely to be here. And Mike, you set it up as being a consummate storyteller, and you certainly were we not all enthralled through that discussion? And who learned something new tonight? I certainly did, yeah. All the hands go up. And that's what storytelling is all about. It's engaging people and getting them to want to go out and revisit Duntroon in this instance. And I certainly want to go and have another look at that blacksmith. You know, I looked at the outside, I had no idea all the amount of work that's gone on, so that was absolutely fabulous. Duntroon and Vanished World have a particular soft spot in our hearts, Trevor and I, because 3 years ago we were here on holiday, doing the Alps to Ocean. We got to Duntroon. We had planned to go for breakfast at the Flying Pig, so we were going to be there on Saturday for coffee, and it was closed. Luckily there was a flag outside the building further down the street, and it was Vanished World, and in we went. We met Alison, and Alison said, "Oh, you poor things, come in. I've got a 1 square meal bar you can have." We'd cycled from Kura. Let me make you a cup of tea and a coffee, and we did, and we were enthralled, and Mike's touched on those stories. Has everybody visited Vanished World? No, there's a couple of people not saying that I have. It's incredible. Sharp-toothed dolphins, man-sized penguins, so much to learn and discover, and the work you're doing now with schools is absolutely fabulous. So, you know, I think the community really thanks you, and certainly as a trustee on the Geopark, it's very special, and it's really at the core of what the Waitaki Limestone Geopark stands for. It was Mike, and it was the paleontologists and the guys from the Takiroa Uni who went into the farmer's land and dug out those fossils, and now we've got this amazing richness. And Duntroon is really becoming quite a great place to go. So a treasure trove of stories. Mike, as a consummate storyteller, thank you so much. The passion that you and Lynn have put into the district and continue to put into the district is just fabulous, and so thank you. We have a little gift for you. More goodies. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We love Waitaki and
good.
Duntroon.
Thank you.
So, round of applause.